Welcome, folks, to How to Stream More Effectively. We're going to start here in just a moment or so. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, you can adjust your audio on your computer. This webinar is free, and it's sponsored by StreamingChurch.tv. We're going to tell you a little bit about how to stream. Some of it's basic, some of it we can get in a little more detail. We will also try to answer your questions. There's a little chat bubble towards the top of your screen that you can kind of click on that circle and you can ask us a question. And depending on what it is, we might answer it right away if we're on that topic, or we might go ahead and just do it at the very end of this webinar. The webinar is scheduled to go about 30 minutes or so. And so we appreciate you spending some time with us today. So now it is after 9 o'clock. We have a few people popping in late, but let's go ahead and begin. Thanks again. This is, of course, brought to you by StreamingChurch.tv, and it's always a pleasure to do these things. We love to help churches, ministries, and organizations use technology. That's what we do. And we also have a podcast, which we can tell you about later, called Church Solutions Podcast. You can find that on iTunes. But without any further delay, let's talk a little bit about who we are. And I want to introduce to you our founder, our president, our CEO. His name is Steve Lacy. Steve, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning and good afternoon for East Coast people.
Yeah, so Steve, very quickly here, we're going to get into how to stream more effectively, but just a moment or so, tell people kind of who you are and very quickly your background.
Okay, let's see, where do I start? I'm a father of four. I've been doing the streaming church for, how long have we been doing it now?
We started in 2000, well, the company's been going since 2001, since we started to help churches with things, but streaming's been about since 2009, I guess.
Yes.
Somewhere in that area there.
So I've been dedicated to providing tools that will provide ministries some advantages to be able to do ministry using some technology. So that's our focus.
Absolutely. And of course, you've got a background in the aerospace industry,
yes,
right?
Yes, I am a degreed engineer, and I like to, well, I like to tell people I've been on the internet kind of before there was an internet.
That's right, you were.
I was on the internet before there were browsers, back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, before Al Gore invented it, right?
Yes.
So, there you go. All right.
So I've been around the internet, been very familiar with it for a very long time.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, good deal. So this is me. I'm Phil Thompson. I'm actually the executive director here, and that looks like a picture from the 1970s. Sorry about that, but I've been involved in helping start Christian broadcasting. I've helped involved in not only radio, but also in churches. I've done a lot of kind of like been bivocational most of my life when it comes to working with churches and working Christian broadcasting. Really got into ministry full time, probably about a little over 20 years ago. I've helped start some churches and been involved in ministry. And that's something that Steve and I have both been involved in ministry most of our adult lives, and so in leadership in all sorts of different forms. And that's one of the things we bring to our company here, is that we have a lot of background working with churches. So thanks for being with us here. Let's just jump into this. There's lots of questions that people have about streaming video. It's easier than ever now, but there's still questions about that and how, what do you need and those kind of things. So let's just jump into it. What do you need to do streaming video? And this is a very, very basic diagram here, but it gives you a little bit of an idea on the simplistic of it. You can obviously get more complicated here. And by the way, if you do have questions, I just want to remind you, there's a little chat bubble up the top. You can text us a question there, and we will get to it sooner or later. So you see on your little screen there, if you can see that, towards the left, you see kind of like the pastor speaking. You got a couple cameras. Then there's a video switcher that doesn't necessarily have to be the case with you. It can be optional, and we'll get into that in a moment. One thing you definitely need if you're going to hook up cameras to do streaming video is a video adapter, or what we call a video capture card. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then there's software you can download. Some of it's for free on your computer. And then from there, you send it up to a content delivery network, such as us, and then it comes back down. It could be on your website, it can be on different places like that. So, and Steve, feel free to jump in here if you want to add anything to what I'm talking about here.
All right, will do.
this is very important as well, that a lot of people don't take this for granted, but upload speed. So to do streaming video, you need some of those things we just mentioned, and we'll get into some of that in a little more detail. But we definitely need to encourage you and emphasize internet upload speed.
Right.
Very important.
Right. One of the, I think a popular myth out there is that the streaming provider determines the quality of your stream, and it's actually largely dependent upon your equipment and your internet connection. And if you're having issues, it's almost always an issue between your church facility and our servers. So having a good internet and upload speed is the thing that really matters here. Download's not that important. And another thing that's that we come across very often is people say, well, I'm paying for 50 megabytes per second up, and so I've got 50 megabytes per second up, and you really need to test
Right.
to ensure that, yeah, you're paying for 50, and your results may vary.
That's right.
Yes.
And that's why we have a little slide up here. This is just a little graphic of a speed test. This happens to be speedof.me. And as Steve said, what's really important is your upload speed. And you can see there in the little test we did a little while back, you got your download speed, and then in the yellow is the upload speed. Yellow is usually a little slower than the download. The download's not as important as upload, and this is very important. And honestly, I would always encourage you, I don't care how great your internet is at your facility, you ought to do at least one speed test before you stream every time.
Right.
Because it does fluctuate. And again, without getting into a lot of detail here this morning, if you have people that have access to your internet when they walk in your church, it's going to downgrade your internet. It's going to shrink the upload speed usually. And so if you have a lot of people that connect to your Wi-Fi, it's going to affect you. And a lot of people don't realize
it's not uncommon for people to say, I tested it on Thursday and it was great, and now Sunday, I'm having all these problems. It must be you. And well, things change. We'll run a test. Another thing, I don't know if you're going to mention or not, is we really like the speedof.me. Probably the most popular speed test out there is speedtest.net, and it will always show a very optimistic number because it's very large, and they have points all over, and they choose the places closest to you to run the speed test, where speedof.me is a more realistic number of what your internet speed is going to be.
And to get that, you would just open up a browser tab, and you would just type in speedof.me, and that's how you do a speed test. And you can, like Steve just said, you can use any test. There, you got to be a little careful you don't click on some of the spam that's there. But speedof.me is, so again, internet speed. And you really should have at least twice the speed that you're sending your video up, your video bit rate. And again, if you need more questions, and by the way, some of this we might be going over your head on, or maybe not, but if you have questions, you can always send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. We'll give you that email in a little bit, or you can chat here. All right, let's move on here because we want to kind of keep this. Another question is, okay, if I'm going to use my computer to stream, what kind of computer should I get? What can I use? Any computer? What kind of RAM should I have? So if you can see this slide on your screen, there's some minimum requirements here that are recommended. It used to be years ago when Steve and I first started doing this, the live encoder that many people use was the Flash Media Live Encoder. Don't use that anymore. If you are, you need to change. But it didn't use a lot of your computer resources. However, now with some of these other live encoders out there, they tend to use a little more of your computer's resources. And so honestly, if you really want to do it right, the recommended list on the right of your screen there is something really to look at closely. You don't have to do this, but it would be really advantageous for you if you had a good processor, you had a lot of RAM. A solid state is always a nice thing to have, but we understand you don't always have to have that or need that, but it's good. And even a graphics card, which wasn't that big of a deal years ago, the graphics cards you get now can actually help your computer process and help you stream better. So this NVIDIA GeForce, where there's an AMD Radeon, those are good cards. They do cost some money, but it's something that you might want to consider if you want to do it right. And again, if you're just starting out and doing something simple, You can probably get away with maybe the minimum requirements here with the processor and the memory and all that, but it is important to consider these things, especially if you're using a live encoder. Let's move on here. Was there a question, Steve?
I was just another comment.
Okay.
Another thing, the more you want to do, I want to send out multiple streams. I want to make sure it's really high quality.
Right.
You're going to need a little more computer to do that.
Right.
Or just you want to watch and make sure that you're not overtaxing your computer as you're encoding.
Most of these live encoders have what they call a CPU processor, CPU percentage. They'll show you.
Most of them do have a CPU.
Most of your computers have a CPU. That's right, unless you have a little squirrel running around chasing something. But no, it's the encoders will tell you how your CPU is doing. And honestly, if you're running above 80%, I think you're in trouble. I think you really need to. You can get away with it, but you could have some problems. All right. So we move on here.
Sure.
All right. So cameras, the big question we always get from everybody is, okay, what kind of camera should I get? And Steve, your classic answer when it comes to cameras is?
It depends.
It depends. Yeah, we're real specific here. Well, I mean, it's kind of like cars, right? What kind of car should I get? And it depends on your budget, on the needs that you have, and those kind of things, right?
What you want to do, yeah. And our rule of thumb that we've been using for years, I think is still pretty appropriate. And that's the closer you can get to your subject and the better your lighting, the less camera you're going to need.
True.
So if you're going to be further away from the subject and the lighting, which, Sunday morning is going to typically not be that great for camera activity, you're going to want to invest in and what's really nice is the cameras have gotten really good.
Yes.
So we have some favorites that we like to recommend.
Yeah, and there's some old ones. I'm putting an old one up here that actually is still pretty good, and you can get some of these used, off maybe some other churches, and you can save a little bit of money on some of that stuff. But cameras, there's just so many of them out there, and I think that the bottom line is. Look at what your budget is, and you can always upgrade a little later, maybe start things out. But this is one of the one camera pro consumer. It's pretty old. There's other ones out here as well. And again, we can help you with some of these questions a little bit later. Here's something that more and more people are going with: PTZ Cameras. I think that stands for what? Pan, zoom,
tilt, zoom.
Pan, tilt, zoom, do somersaults or whatever. It used to be these were kind of clunky. And still can be, depending on the brand you get. But now there's some pretty nice ones out there that will do some of this pan and tilt and zoom a little more fluid. And you can use these. They've gotten better over the years. They're not cheap, a couple $1,000s or more. But it is something. They're small, and you can put them different places. But again, we can get into more detail on this. But I wanted to at least throw this out.
Yeah, and there's also pan, tilt, zoom adapters. That's what we did at our church. Is we retained some cameras, some conventional cameras, and then mounted them on pan, tilt, zoom devices.
And then you could kind of control it there. All right. Do we need to solve it? Do we need to answer any questions right now, or do we wait?
I think I don't know. Let's see. We had a question about ideal upload speeds for HD, and I mentioned that in the chat that. Thinking just a minimum would be 2 megabits per second. If we were to apply our 2-for-1 rule, that you'd need 4 megabits. Get a 4 megabit score to make sure that it never got down as low as 2 megabits.
So basically, what you're saying is, if you're doing your video upload bit rate at 2 megabits, your internet has to be at least 4.
Right.
Your internet upload speed that you should test, that we said earlier.
Right. So we have, and we can send this out later or just send us an email. Someone asked about, do we have a list of cameras? And we do have, we've got a little equipment recommendation sheet that's got a good, better, best kind of thing on it. And so across these different categories, we'll have what we consider a good, better, best camera. And good, better, best encoders and video capture and that sort of thing. Right.
You could go to StreamingChurch.tv. That's our company, and you could look under FAQ, and then there's some FAQs, and then there is a list. But as we said earlier here, there's so many cameras out today that it just depends on what you want to do. But we can certainly answer some questions later about this, or send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv. Let's move on here. We're about halfway through our webinar. All right, so here's a clunker for you. I think this was yours or something at one point. We just wanted to show you, this is a consumer grade, and a very old one actually, camcorder, but you can do it, and you might see on the slide here, it's SD, and you have it coming out of the camera into what we mentioned earlier, a video capture device, which we'll talk about in a moment. This is an old Grass Valley one that goes into your computer. Notice the little box to the right of the laptop. Again, it's workable, and actually some of the newer consumer grade camcorders actually are pretty nice. So not maybe the ideal, but something you could start off with and do some things with, right? So just wanted to throw that out there. So the next question is, okay, all right, so I'm going to get a camera or get some cameras. What do I do now as far as to actually stream? So there are these things that you can download on your computers called live encoders, and there are multiple ones out there. We're going to talk about 3 or maybe 4 of them today. There's also hardware live encoders, which we'll get to in a moment. But first of all is Wirecast. Wirecast has been around for a long time. It's a live encoder. It's kind of like a little studio. So you don't really need to have a switcher. It's in some ways its own little switcher. And Wirecast has gone up in price, so it's not free. You can download it for free, and you can test drive it for free. It's got a little watermark on it, and a voice that comes on as you're testing it saying, "This is Wirecast." But you can certainly play with it and try it, but it's going to have a watermark that's going to say Wirecast. But you can play around with it. The product now goes for how much, Steve? Like now it's up to like $700.
$700 now, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good product. It certainly is a good product, but it's $700. That's for what most people would use. They have like a pro grade version or something for a couple thousand now, something like that.
Right, but for churches, I mean, the pro grade will do other things that you might not need for church. It'll have scoreboards and things for sporting events and things like that. But their mid-range or their entry level would be good for churches.
And again, when you're using something like Wirecast, we mentioned earlier about your computer's power, your processor, you want to have that. So here's another one that we actually do recommend quite a bit. It's called Vmix, and you can find it at vmix.com. And Vmix has a lot of, we like it because it's pretty flexible. And there's several different packages you can get. You can actually use it for free for 60 days. And you could actually keep using it for free after 60 days. It's limited. Or you can buy the license for a one-time fee of, what is it, $60? To look at it.
Yeah, $60. I think it's still $60.
One-time fee. And so, that's not a bad little price. It's like, in some ways, it's like Wirecast, it's a little studio itself, so to speak. The only problem with Vmix might be if you have a Mac, can't use it.
Right.
So that would be the only thing there. They don't have a Mac application or a Mac version. But again, it's a live encoder that you can use to stream with, and we actually have videos and stuff on how to set that up.
One of the other things that both Wirecast and Vmix is we're a preset on those. So setting up either one of those is really simple with us.
Very simple. Very simple. It's just
choose us as destination, put your credentials in, your username, password, and it takes care of everything.
Yep. StreamingChurch.tv. Now here's another live encoder, which is totally free. It's one of Steve's favorites because it's open source software, and it's called Open Broadcaster, OBS Studio. I know it's obsproject.com. I should have probably put the website on there, but obsproject.com is where you can find it. Again, it's free. We like it. We're not a destination preset, so the credentials are a little not bad, but just you have to put a little longer link in there. But it's a live encoder that's pretty easy on the resources of your computer. So you don't.
And it will run on anything. One of the disadvantages of OBS, unlike both Vmix and Wirecast, is Vmix and Wirecast can support multiple destinations. Right. So you can send your stream out to us and Facebook or multiple streams to us. Right. OBS is going to limit you to just one destination.
One destination, unless you want to use something like Restream, which we will mention here. And we'll mention Facebook here in a moment as well. But it's a good little live encoder. This is just a screenshot here of what I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea on, like, if you were using something like Wirecast or Vmix, that gives you the ability to run multiple cameras, and actually you could even do that with OBS. You can just kind of look at this picture and you can see some cameras. They're going into, again, a video capture device, which we will tell you here in a moment, which is very important to have. Got to have it. And then it goes into your computer and just gives you a little visual of how it would work, so to speak. If you're going to do multiple cameras, if you're going to, you don't have to, but if you could. So we mentioned video capture device. Video adapters, some people call them, whatever. We like this particular product. It's by Magewell. It's a USB capture, HDMI Generation 2. So the way this would work is you have a camera. It comes out. You have a line coming out of your camera. You plug in the one end of this USB capture, and then the other end goes into your computer. This is great with USB 3.0. Which is a faster processor.
Or Thunderbolt as well, right?
Yeah, Thunderbolt, which we'll get to in a moment or so here, but USB 3.0 now is pretty much standard now on all new PCs or laptops. You could certainly use this, or you could use it with USB 2.0. And again, that's an older processor, which is slower, but you could still use it. So that's what we mean by video capture device. The camera plugs into one end, and the other end goes into your computer. And then you mentioned Thunderbolt. Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle is pretty good when it comes to Thunderbolt. Now, Thunderbolt's another kind of port. It replaced, FireWire, right, years ago. And so the Magewell doesn't work with Thunderbolt. So if you have a Mac or something, but this Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle is an option you could use to plug into your Thunderbolt port on your computer. So if you're using a Mac, especially, this would work for you. We're not huge on Blackmagic Intensity Shuttles for the USB because sometimes you have to download drivers for them, where the Magewell you don't.
Yeah, we've had mixed results.
Yeah, but if you're using Thunderbolt, it usually works pretty good. But if you're going with USB, and it's a different Blackmagic to get for USB 3.0, then you got to deal with sometimes drivers, and it can be a little bit of a problem. Sometimes it can. All right, so that's what we mean by video capture device. We want to mention a little bit here about another option when it comes to live encoding and streaming, and that is Sling Studio. So we have recently, in full disclosure, we are partners now, partnering with Sling Studio. And Sling Studio is kind of nice because it's a wireless setup, and you see on your screen there's a hub, and then you see somebody with an iPad right next to it. And the iPad, you can download the console for Sling Studio, and you can actually create your iPad can kind of become a switcher, and it's very mobile. You can walk around a little bit. The hub is where everything kind of goes into, and then this next shot you'll see, if you can see it okay on your screen there, it gives you just a quick little idea how it works. You have your hub, then you have your cameras that connect to the hub wirelessly. You can even use an iPhones, or even iPads as additional cameras, which in some ways can be kind of nice. You can, if you want to have an event and have a very mobile setup, works really well. And again, your iPad, or now your Mac, you can use your Mac as kind of your switcher as well. But we like Sling Studio. We've messed around with it a little bit. I've got some people that are customers that are using it. We like it because you don't have a bunch of cables everywhere, and it really becomes a nice little device to use, and we would highly recommend it. And it's pretty reasonable to get into. You can actually get into the starting package under $1,000, and then you can upgrade as well. If you decide you want to go this route, you can talk to us. Just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv, or if you go to their website and you really decide you want to get this, we do recommend it. Enter the promo code SCTV when it comes to the checkout, and they'll give you a free Sling Studio USB-C expander. So you can do a little more with that. It's like a $50 value almost. So really a great little tool for churches. Very flexible, very portable. You can do a lot with it. You can actually connect, I think, up to 10 cameras with it if you really wanted to do that. So we like it a lot, and we recommend it. And again, we are partners with them. Just full disclosure on that. So.
Right. Yeah, one of the really, key advantages I think you emphasize is you can go wireless.
Yeah.
So you can take, even with, typically wired cameras, you can plug them into the camera extender things, and everything can be wireless.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's a nice little thing. And again, the studio, the offer, if you want to buy it, just enter SCTV, standing for StreamingChurch.tv, of course, and you get a free Sling Studio USB. So really a nice little thing here. And again, something to enhance your streaming. Let's talk for a little moment about hardware live encoder. We mentioned software, which was Vmix, Wirecast, Open Broadcaster. TriCaster has been around for a long time, and they are what you might call hardware live encoders. And again, it's something that has been around for a while. They're a little pricey depending on what you want to do with it and spend and your budget. We tend to recommend more software-based live encoders because if something goes down, you can easily, convert a computer. If your TriCaster goes down, which we've had experience with in our own churches, sometimes that can be a problem. But a live encoder is certainly lots of options out there, and TriCaster does have a lot of different models. Now here's something that's also very popular, and it's called the Teradek VDU, and it's a very small little box that you can stream from. So you don't need a computer, just like you wouldn't necessarily need a computer with the TriCaster, but with this one you can actually put on a camera, you can set it up, and you can use this little box to stream with. I'll give you a little example of this. There's a camera that has the Teradek on top of it. It mounts on there, and there it is, and you can use it. It's again pretty flexible. It has its limitations, but it is a nice little box if you don't want to tie up another computer. Any thoughts on that, Steve, before we move on to digital switchers?
This is kind of the same model that the Sling Studio's camera extender has as well, too.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about digital video switchers. We will just very quickly do this. We, if you've got multiple cameras and you want to use something like OBS, or you want to use, well, you can use any live encoder, and you want to do a little bit more of what you're doing, digital video switchers are definitely an option out there. The roll-ins at least starts around at least $1,000 to do a digital video switcher. There are more expensive ones. So the roll-in does a pretty good job at that, and you can switch back and forth with cameras, send it. You could actually send your video to different places in your church. If you have a lobby or something and you want to send a video there, you could do that, as well as send it to your live encoder, which would go on the internet and would stream. Something to consider if you have the budget and you want to go with that. Another option, or another thing we need to mention very quickly here, is audio mixers. So, you can do streaming video with your cameras, but what about the audio? We would recommend that you take the audio that's, every church pretty much has a sound mixing board in the back of your auditorium. Take a signal coming out of that, a line coming out of that mixer, and send it into your live encoder. Now, this is a very small little mixer, and this is another option that some churches use. They have their big board, 24-channel board or more. They send a signal, and then they send it to a different mixer, like this small little one here, and they actually use this to kind of tweak the audio that would be streamed online. So you can tweak it a little more and make it a little more on the internet, it's going to sound different than what it would in the auditorium or in the worship center. So you can work with another mixer that you would send the signal to your live encoder. Does that make sense? Am I going too quick here? But you can tweak it, is what I'm saying. Or you don't have to use this. If you have got a good signal coming out of your main board, you can send it. So audio actually is probably, in some ways, more important than video. And what I mean by that is you can have the greatest video in the world, but if your audio is not good, people are not going to hang around. But if your video maybe is not the greatest, but it's okay, but your audio is solid, if your audio is good, then people will hang around and they will listen to the service. So audio is important. Don't underestimate audio. And if you need help on this, we can certainly give you a little bit of advice. Lighting is also, as Steve mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, lighting is important as well. So good lighting will help your video out, and it'll just make a better experience for people watching online. There's all sorts of lighting out there now. There's a lot of LED out there, which is much nicer and easier to use. It's pretty reasonably priced. And I would just go something like I don't know, there's lots of places out there. B&H Photo out in New York carries a lot of these products. We like them. So you can do a lot with your lighting when you do LED, and there's different, you can see there's even remotes now you can use, so you can make adjustments on that, and it will help the quality of your video and your streaming. So very quickly here, we want to mention that when it comes to streaming video, we are very big on interactivity. So a lot of churches say, yeah, I want video on my website, which we provide, and many CDNs do, and it's just video. Well, we also provide a chat platform which is very interactive. And so when you see this, you're looking at one example. For us, we provide all sorts of customized platforms. You can do a lot with our platforms. But I would recommend, Steve and I would recommend, that if you're going to do streaming video, you should try to make it interactive, because that's a great way when you're connecting with new people, or even people that come to your church that are watching. You can chat with them. You can field their prayer requests, and you can do that in private. You can see who's watching online. You can provide some notes for people that are watching the video. They can look at the sermon notes, so to speak. You can share this on Facebook or Twitter, or send out an email. Those kind of things are really good. So interactive, to me, is very important. People are looking for that. And if people don't want to interact, they can just watch the video. They don't have to chat. They can go full screen and just see the video. Anything to add to this when it comes to interactivity?
Everyone that we serve is in ministry, and it's tougher to do ministry with people if all they can do is see your stream. So if you can do ministry when you treat it like another campus, and that's kind of where our bent is. We try to replicate the experience for the viewer online that they would have if they showed up in person. So, and that's where ministry can occur. Yeah. So we encourage you to put the tools in place so that you can connect with those that you're trying to reach online.
Yeah. And so, with our company, StreamingChurch.tv, we certainly encourage you to use these tools. You don't have to use them. You just do video, but we encourage you to do that. So speaking of Facebook, we get a lot of people asking today, well, I want to stream live to Facebook. Well, you can certainly do that with our company. Facebook is the streaming is very popular. A little disclaimer with Facebook is you can stream the Facebook Live. You may get people initially watching it, but then going away very quickly. And there can be some copyright issues with Facebook, as there is with YouTube. We do have that option if you go with our company to be able to stream live to Facebook. We have a little workaround. Live encoders out there like Vmix and Wirecast have Facebook as a destination you could use if that's all you want to do. So it certainly is an option out there. I have had some people tell me that they were using Facebook, some churches that were using Facebook to live stream, and they decided they weren't going to do it anymore. They were just going to put a link on Facebook that would take people to their website, because they felt like maybe the SEO factor was being minimized by just people were going to Facebook but not to their website. If that makes any sense. And so some churches would rather just stream to their website and send a link out on Facebook so people can go to their website. That makes sense? So Facebook is an option, and it's certainly something you could do with your mobile devices, of course, or you could do it with a live encoder if you wanted to, and we can help you with that if you have questions later. Another option out there, very quickly, Restream.io. Steve mentioned earlier about OBS, open source broadcaster. You can only send one stream, but if you wanted to do multiple destinations, Restream.io is a option there. You could send a stream to Restream, and they'll send it back down to your website. Send it to Facebook. They can send it to YouTube and other options. They say it's free, but I'm confused on their pricing. I mean, we have one customer, they pay $7 a month to do Facebook with it.
I'm not aware that it's free.
Yeah, it says, if you look, it'll say it's free, but it's not really free. And if you want to do more things, it does cost more money. That's just an option to consider. So we can answer some questions here. We're just about done, but we do want to encourage you that if you want to do streaming video, you've never done it before, or you want to try our company for the first time, we have a little offer that you can take advantage of, and that is if you want to stream with us, you can create a 30-day free trial, and if you activate, we'll give you 50% off the first month after your activation. We have two packages. We have a basic unlimited package for $79 a month. We have a premium unlimited package for $127. So if you're interested in that, you can just go ahead and you can make a free trial at StreamingChurch.tv, and you can start your free trial today. We'll help you every step of the way, and we will answer questions for you and do all that good stuff. And again, if you end up activating, we'll give you 50% off. So Facebook is, we've got a question about Facebook. We have instructions on our admin control panel. If you are a client of ours, just go to StreamingChurch.tv, log into your admin control panel, and then go to Streaming Management, and then I think it's Events, right? So I forget off the top of my head.
Event Management, Stream to Facebook, yeah.
So we're glad that you spent some time with us today. We are always available to help you. We actually have a podcast that we do every week. You can find it on iTunes or any reputable podcast provider. We are Church Solutions Podcast, and Steve and I have different guests on, sometimes multiple times a month, sometimes it's just him and I, but we can certainly answer questions on the podcast, and if you have some feedback, we would love to hear from you. Support at StreamingChurch.tv. That about wraps us up, right, Steve?
That's it. Now, we kind of went over the very basics for getting started with streaming. If you're already streaming and you kind of, this is, get all your equipment together and you've been streaming for a while, there's also an advanced class we'd like to, share with you. Right. And some of that is some of the stuff comes through the podcast. We're actually launching launching a new consulting service to work with ministries to more effectively minister online. So we have tips and training for web hosts and for setting your presentation up online, for how you market your services online, that whole thing. So there's some more resources. If you're interested, just send us an email or something, and we can point them your way.
Yeah, we're all about equipping
guys that are doing just a great job.
That's right, and
doing ministry online.
Yeah. And we certainly would be glad to help you. We love equipping churches. That's what we like. We like to help churches use technology, and one of those is streaming video. So, all right, great. All right, so we're out of time. We've almost ended on time. So, again, thank you for your time today. You can always contact us, support at StreamingChurch.tv, or you can chat with us online during our business hours. We're on Pacific time, but you can always chat with us. Just go to StreamingChurch.tv. And if we're not there, leave a message. We'll call you back. All right, Steve, thank you for your time today.
Good being here.
All right, and thank you, folks, for viewing this webinar. It will be available later. It's recorded, so it will be available later. And I hope that you have a great day, and take care of yourselves. We'll catch you next time.